2009, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. A 17-year-old girl on spring break with her friends vanishes without a trace. Over the next decade, investigators struggle to put the pieces together. In May of 2022, answers would finally be had as the monster involved would finally come clean. This is Horrible Fates, the Brittanee Drexel story. Welcome to The Cellar. This story starts in Rochester, New York. Rochester sits on the Great Lake Ontario. It's 86 miles or 138 kilometers east of Niagara Falls and 86 miles or 138 kilometers west of Syracuse. The city of Rochester has over 200,000 residents, while the greater metropolitan area has around 1 million total residents. One such resident, 17-year-old Brittanee Drexel, was getting ready to enjoy spring break. It was April of 2009, and Brittanee went to her mother and asked if she could go with some friends to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. There were no accompanying adults on the trip, and Brittanee's mom wasn't comfortable with her going. She told Brittanee no, and Brittanee wasn't happy with her mom's answer. Brittanee and her mom argued for the next few days before Brittanee pitched a new idea. How about she goes and spends a few days at her friend's house during spring break? Her mom would agree to the plan, and at the time, she had no idea just how rebellious her teen daughter was about to become. Before we move forward, let's go back a little bit first in the story. Brittanee Drexel was born October 7, 1991 in Rochester. Brittanee's mother, Dawn, and father, John, were both teenagers at the time, and they were not married. At an extremely young age, John left the family. Brittanee's mother, Dawn, would soon meet and marry a military man named Chad Drexel. Chad helped raise Brittanee, and in turn, he became the father figure she had lost. Chad would end up adopting Brittanee, and she officially changed her last name to Drexel. Growing up, Brittanee never had things easy. She was born with persistent hyperplastic primary vitreous in her right eye, which required numerous surgeries throughout her life. PHPV is a congenital developmental disorder where blood vessels that normally regress during fetal development persist, potentially leading to vision problems. This condition would eventually leave Brittanee blind in her right eye. To counteract her eye wandering, Brittanee wore a special contact that helped. In high school, Brittanee was well liked. Her bubbly, happy-go-lucky personality was infectious to those that got to know her. Brittanee was rather small and petite in stature, but don't be fooled by her size, as she was extremely tenacious. This showed in all the different sports she participated in, especially soccer. Moving forward, Dawn Drexel was relieved when her daughter asked to go stay with a friend nearby for a few days. The idea of her 17-year-old traveling 800 miles south had not sat well with her at all. In fact, she had a sinking feeling that if she had let Brittanee go to Myrtle Beach, something bad would have happened. In retrospect, her mom had no idea just how right that feeling would become. See, Brittanee was dead set on going to Myrtle Beach. So as her friends got ready to leave, Brittanee soon joined them, and on April 22, 2009, the group of teenagers were on their way to South Carolina. They would arrive the next morning at the Bar Harbor Motel, located at 100 South Ocean Boulevard, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. After checking in, Brittanee texts her boyfriend, John Greco, back in Rochester. Throughout her stay in Myrtle Beach, Brittanee kept in continuous contact with her boyfriend. According to the text that she sent her boyfriend, the first few days in Myrtle Beach were everything Brittanee hoped it would be, enjoying the sun, sand, and the nightlife. Even though Brittanee and her friends were all underage, slipping into nightclubs and bars is something underage vacationers do quite frequently. You would like to think that the clubs ID everyone, but at the end of the day, it's all about money, so many bars and clubs simply look the other way when it comes to determining age. By day 2, things started to change a bit for Brittanee. The group of girls she went with were all older than her, and from what her boyfriend has stated, they were all using a lot of illicit substances. Brittanee wasn't really into partying the same way the rest of her group was, and so she started going off and doing things on her own. On her own, Brittanee started feeling a bit alone and alienated from her group of friends. On Friday, April 24, 2009, Brittanee ran into a male friend of hers from Rochester, New York, named Peter Brosowitz. Peter was 3 years older than Brittanee and was staying at the Blue Water Resort. The Blue Water Resort was 1.4 miles from where Brittanee was staying and was around a 30-minute walk. The pair talked and made plans to hang out the following day. Saturday, April 25th, 2009. Now you may ask, how had Brittanee's mom not picked up on any of this yet? Well, over the course of the time she spent in Myrtle Beach, Brittanee kept in pretty constant contact with her mother, even telling her sister on Saturday that she was at the beach, which led her mom to believe that she was at a nearby beach on Lake Ontario. Brittanee's mother also asked at one point to speak with an adult, and Brittanee was able to accommodate by putting someone on the phone that acted as one. Brittanee would finish that phone conversation on Saturday with both her mom and sister. Her mom had no idea that this would be the last time she ever spoke to her firstborn child. At 8 p.m. that evening, Brittanee texts her boyfriend to let him know she's making the 1.4-mile trek to meet up with Peter Brosowitz. Before she goes, she borrows a pair of shorts from one of her friends. At this point, Brittanee's messages with her boyfriend are not as happy as they once were. She seems pretty miserable and overall ready to come home the following day. Brittanee would arrive at the Blue Water Resort where she briefly hung out with Peter. While there, Brittanee's friend messages her, asking her to bring the shorts back to the hotel. Her friend wants to wear those shorts out that night. Annoyed by this, Brittanee lets Peter know she's gotta go, and soon leaves, making her way back to the Bar Harbor Motel. Brittanee and her boyfriend text back and forth during her walk, but soon enough, Brittanee stops responding. 20, then 30 minutes go by, and John becomes increasingly concerned. John tries not to panic, but as an hour passes by, he can't help but feel like something horrible has happened. He texts Brittanee, threatening to tell her mom where she is. John then calls Brittanee, and she doesn't answer. A little more time goes by, and John makes the difficult decision. He phones Brittanee's mom and lets her know what's going on. Brittanee's mother, Dawn, is furious at first. She tries calling Brittanee numerous times, no answer. Dawn soon calls one of Brittanee's friends in North Carolina. This friend immediately began traveling to Myrtle Beach to file a missing persons report with the police. The following morning, Dawn, John, Brittanee's grandparents, and 2 friends all get in a car and start making the long trek south to Myrtle Beach. After they arrive, they meet up with the local police, and the search for Brittanee Drexel is soon underway. At first, the police thought that Brittanee may have run away, but Dawn and John were both positive that that's not what happened to her. The police would speak with Brittanee's friends, and they had not seen or heard from her. It was as if she had simply vanished without a trace. After speaking with Brittanee's boyfriend, the police soon go looking for Peter Brosowitz, but they are stunned to find out that he and some of his friends had left town around 2 a.m. that morning. This was viewed as extremely suspicious, as Peter and his friends appeared to have left in a hurry, leaving behind clothing and their deposit on the resort. What would motivate them to leave so quickly, only 5 hours after Brittanee disappeared? Peter would also obtain a defense attorney in Rochester after getting back. For some, this only made him look even more guilty. As the police continue to search for clues, they finally get a break in the case. They locate Brittanee on a traffic camera and on camera at the Blue Water Resort. According to Peter, Brittanee left shortly after arriving, and the security camera at the front door of the resort corroborates his story. The police now knew Brittanee left the resort at 8:48 p.m. From there, they looked back through the traffic camera footage, looking to see if they could locate Brittanee walking back by on her way to her motel. Police are unable to locate her on the camera. They know now for certain that something had to have happened to Brittanee in the first half of her walk back to the Bar Harbor Motel. The police would continue speaking with Peter, but they soon came to the conclusion that he had nothing to do with Brittanee's disappearance. As the search for Brittanee continues, the police soon get their hands on Brittanee's cell phone data. The results are alarming in every possible way. The phone's network pings were tracked on a path leading 50 to 60 miles or 80 to 97 kilometers south of Myrtle Beach in an area along U.S. Route 17 near the Georgetown-Charleston County line. As Brittanee was supposed to be heading towards her hotel, her cell phone was heading south on Route 17. Ultimately, the pings from her cell phone would stop abruptly early in the morning of April 26th, the morning after Brittanee disappeared. What was her phone doing so far from Myrtle Beach? How did she get there? Based on the time it took the phone to travel, it was clearly within a vehicle, and that vehicle made a straight trek towards Georgetown County. Her phone would stop in the area around the Pole Yard boat landing, a very isolated and rural area, an area that Brittanee would have no interest in traveling to, nor even know about. The police would soon put together a search of the area, but in the end, nothing would turn up. As we said, the area is very rural, and there are plenty of alligators, wild hogs, snakes, and more. If someone took Brittanee there to dispose of her, well, it would be more than likely that she would never be found. The investigation would continue, but soon days would turn to weeks, and weeks would turn to months. Brittanee's case had all but stalled before a new clue was found. North of where searchers originally looked for Brittanee, a pair of sunglasses were located along the Santee River. These sunglasses sparked a new search for the missing 17-year-old, but in the end, it was never confirmed whether these were actually Brittanee's sunglasses, and no other evidence would be found. Months would then continue to go by, and those months would turn to years. Dawn Drexel would end up relocating to South Carolina in order to be close to the area in which her daughter went missing. She never gave up hope that one day she might bring her home. For the Drexel family, they soon became convinced that Brittanee had been sold and trafficked, something the police did not believe to be a possibility. Something that the police did look into, though, were registered offenders living in the area in which Brittanee's phone had last pinged. In 2011, an apartment was searched, having belonged formerly to a man named Raymond Moody, who was a registered offender living in the area. Raymond was one of many that the police had their eyes on in this case. In 2016, another seemingly big break finally came in the case. Taquan Brown, a South Carolina inmate serving a 25-year sentence for manslaughter, told the FBI that he had gone to visit a stash house where he saw Timothy Deshawn Taylor assaulting Brittanee Drexel. He stated that he saw Drexel attempt to escape from the stash house, and she was recaptured before 2 gunshots were heard, seemingly ending her life. He also claimed that he saw her body being dumped into an alligator pond within the area. According to Brown, Taylor picked Brittanee up in Myrtle Beach and drove to meet up with his friends before he attempted to sell her for trafficking purposes. The police would take this lead very seriously, and over the course of the next few years, it appeared that the police may in fact have the person who took Brittanee's life. But Timothy Deshawn Taylor maintained his innocence and even stated that he had no idea who Taquan Brown even was. In the end, it would come to light that Taquan Brown had made the entire thing up. Years of time in the investigation were lost, all because of Taquan Brown's fabrication of events. More years would soon pass, with the Drexel family having no clear answers as to what happened to their daughter. At this point, it seemed hopeless that the truth was ever going to be uncovered. But that would all change in 2022 when a man that had been on the police's radar years and years earlier, finally confessed to murdering 17-year-old Brittanee Drexel. 62-year-old registered offender Raymond Moody turned himself in May of 2022. He had originally been a person of interest as early as 2012, but police had not been able to find any evidence against him. Now, in 2022, Raymond Moody was not only confessing, but he was going to show the police where he placed Brittanee's body. I will play Raymond Moody's interview now.
The only person who ever told this story to is my lawyer. Angel never even knew the real story. She never knew. Anyway, when I was going down Ocean Boulevard, we were going pretty slow driving. I was driving, and pretty walking speed, and I saw the Drexel girl walking on the sidewalk, and I was smoking pot. She noticed that, walked over through the door and said something about that smells like good weed. I said, yeah, you want some? Sure. Get in. She hopped right in the back, right a problem. And we smoked the weed, went down the boulevard, and we're just in small talk. Angel's not really saying anything, but we're smoking the pot. And I said, hey, you want to party a little bit with us? We're going to get some game, you know? She said, sure. So we started driving. We're just driving around, smoking, talking. And I went right into Georgetown, went right to a spot. where we used to camp out down by the river. And we went down there, and I was by myself with her because Angel left for a while. So I see her son. As things got out of hand, and I panicked, and she panicked, and I strangled her.
Raymond Moody's confession just shows how evil he is. But I'm about to tell you the truth. This confession is not accurate. In the end, we may never know for sure what exactly happened, but Raymond Moody would eventually strike a deal in order to transfer his property to his grandchildren. With that deal in place, he needed to come clean on the truth of what happened. The new story is one that is even darker, as Moody stated that he and his girlfriend Angel were hunting around Myrtle Beach looking for a girl. They saw Brittanee alone, and Angel pretended to be a tourist. They then lured Brittanee into their vehicle, promising to give her a ride up the road to her motel. They then switched drivers so that Moody could restrain Brittanee as they drove away from Myrtle Beach. Moody would tell Brittanee to remain calm, telling her that he kidnaps girls in order to obtain a $5,000 ransom from the local Chamber of Commerce. They then drove to the Pole Yard boat ramp, where they had a tent set up. Moody left Brittanee with Angel for around 45 minutes before he returned. Angel had all the opportunity to let Brittanee go, but she never did. When Moody got back, he then assaulted Brittanee in front of Angel, who just sat there watching. Following the assault, he used a rope around Brittanee's neck and then took an ice pick and plunged it into her heart. Moody placed her body in the trunk of their vehicle, and the pair returned to their apartment. Angel told Moody at this point that she was scared, and Moody didn't trust Angel to keep her mouth shut about everything. So he went and disposed of Brittanee's body alone, so only he would know the location of her remains. This second telling of the story paints an even more horrifying picture of what took place. The first story was bad enough, but what Brittanee went through, well, no one should have to go through anything like that. Moody is a monster, but so is his girlfriend, Angel Voss. Luckily, Moody would be sentenced to life in prison, where he will rot for the rest of his existence, while Angel Voss was eventually convicted and sentenced to 18 years in prison. If you ask me, she doesn't deserve to experience freedom ever again. As I said before, we don't know whether Moody's story is the 100% factual truth or not. I believe, at the very least, that there is truth sprinkled throughout both of his stories. In the end, Moody at least did the right thing, as he led the police to where Brittanee's body was buried. Police would locate her remains, and her family was able to finally put her to rest. I myself remember following this story and watching the disappeared episodes so many years ago. I always hoped that maybe one day they would find her alive, but it wasn't meant to be. To anyone listening to this story, especially young women, please remember to stay vigilant. I'm not saying you have to live every day in fear, but keep one eye open to the possibility that a real-life monster may be lurking just around the corner.
And I was sentenced to 40 years and 4 months. And I did 20 years and 8 months, and I thought that was enough, but it wasn't. I was a monster. I was a monster then, and I was a monster when I took Brittanee Drexel's life. And I don't have the words to express how horrible I feel, and I've felt ever since that day. I'm very, very sorry.
Hello, Your Honor. Today we know the truth, and today, Mr. Moody, you face the consequences for that. Today, my daughter, Brittanee, is here with me, with all of us, not just in spirit. Brittanee is present. Brittanee was a beautiful 17-year-old with her full life ahead of her. From the moment I gave birth to her, Brittanee was my life. She had a beautiful soul. She was our soccer star. She was in her junior year in high school, getting ready for prom, was working, planning for college and her bright future. What gave you the right to put your hands on my daughter? You are a disgrace to your parents, to your own children, to your family, and any friends you have left. Today, nobody wins. I hope you suffer in prison for the rest of your useless life. I have no regard for you, just like you had no regard for my daughter's life. I ask you, Judge Cothran, to sentence Raymond Moody to the fullest extent of the law, not a day less, to make sure his last breath is taken in the cage where he belongs, where he will never harm another beautiful girl like Brittanee again. No amount of time in prison would be sufficient for the lifetime you took away from Brittanee. Thank you.
As I always like to do, I want to send my deepest condolences to all of Brittanee Drexel's family and friends. A big thank you to each and every one of you for tuning in to another episode. If you enjoy the content I make here on the channel, then please hit that like and subscribe button. It helps the channel continue to grow. Also, you can check the description box below and find the link to my merch store and a link to my membership tier for the channel. For only $2.99 a month, you can help support my channel further, and you get some pretty cool perks to go with it. One of those perks is having your name listed here in the end of each of my videos. So thank you to all my Cellar Dweller members. Also, if you'd like to submit a real-life scary story of any kind, please do so using the email that is linked in the description box below. As always, I do all the research, writing, recording, and editing for the channel myself, so anything that you do to help support the channel is greatly appreciated. And until next time, I will see you all again as we head back into the cellar.
Let you go!